A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to your favorite tele-education program, Home Study. My name is Lirato Mabilisa, and as always, I am with the stunning colleague of mine, Nogwazi Dlamini. Also joining us in studio are our beautiful sign language interpreters, Zanele Mota and Tobile Fagute. A very good afternoon, Nogwazi.
A very good afternoon, Lerato, and a very good afternoon to our viewers. A very good afternoon it is. We've been called all sorts of names, stunning, beautiful, and everything. You're looking stunning yourself, Lerato, and thank you very much for that. Welcome to Home Study to our viewers. We hope that you are ready for another day of learning. Lerato, please give us today's timetable.
Well, grade 7s, Form 3s, and Form 5s, I hope that you are ready for today's lessons. Firstly, we will have religious education from 2 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., followed by English language from 2:30 p.m. to 3:08 p.m., followed by mathematics from 3:08 p.m. to 3:45 p.m., followed by chemistry from 3:45 p.m. to 4:25 p.m. And then the last subject is going to be English language from 4:25 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Lerato. And just to remind our viewers back at home that we are live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. And of course, during the lessons, if you have any questions, please feel free to use our WhatsApp number that pops up on your screen from time to time. Now, without wasting any any time, sorry about that. Grade 7s, we hope that you are ready for your lesson, which is going to be religious education with Winnie Dlamini. Lerato will be right back with you after this.
Kumelula ukuthi ligciwane lecorona lisuke kulomunye lingene kulomunye uma sitawusonzelana. Singasita sinciphise kuanza kwalo ngekuthi sikhweshelane. Lokhu kusho ukuthi singachawulani, singathinzani njengokuhagana nje. Tikhweshise ngesigaba lesimitha kusuka kulabanye. Kumcoka kakhulu kuhlala uhlobile nekuthi hlobisa uma uke waphumela kubantu. Ngekubambisana sitakumisa kwanza kwaleli gciwane sibe ngulabaphilile. Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Hand washing is one of the best ways to keep from getting sick and staying healthy all the year long.
Welcome back, grade 7s. If you've just tuned in, do not worry. This is the first subject for the day, and we are doing religious education with Miss Winnie Dlamini. A very good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Lerato. How are you?
I'm all right. Sorry, Miss Winnie Dlamini. Okay. Today's topic is crossing the Red Sea.
Yes, it's a subtopic.
Okay.
Yes.
What would you expect the viewer to have learned from the subtopic by the end of the lesson?
Okay, let us start by the topic, Lerato. Our topic is destruction of life.
Okay.
And our subtopic is crossing the Red Sea. And by this lesson, the learner it will help the learner to understand and respect God as the loving, caring, and protective father to his children.
Okay. It sounds like a very interesting lesson indeed. So, without wasting any time, you may begin your lesson, Miss Winnie.
Okay. Good afternoon, dear learner. Can you take your RSV Bible, an exercise book, and a pen with you so that you can take notes while we are learning? Okay. Let us start, dear learner. Our first I want us to look at the key words for our lesson. The first word is drown, slave, and wilderness. Okay, dear Lena, what is the meaning of drown? Drown is to die from being submerged in water. The next one is slave. A slave is a person who is legally owned by someone else and has to work for that person. The next one is wilderness. A wilderness is a region uncultivated and uninhabited by human beings. Okay, dear Lena, let us look at our lesson objectives. What you are expected to, you should be able to do at the end of the lesson. By the end of the lesson, as a learner, you should be able to describe the events before, during, and after crossing the Red Sea. The next one, as a learner, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to state the lessons and teaching of the story of crossing the Red Sea. The next one, as a learner, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe the character of God, Pharaoh, Moses, and the Israelites. Okay, let us move on, dear Lena. We know that, I think you remember previously that we learned about how God used the 10 plagues to force the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. We remember that the Israelites had stayed in Egypt for a very long time. They stayed in Egypt for 430 years. How were they treated in Egypt, dear Lena? They were made slaves by the Egyptians. Then God sent plagues to force the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. But the Pharaoh didn't want to let the Israelites go. Which plague finally forced the Pharaoh to let the Israelites go? That is the death of all firstborn males of humans and animals. After the 10th plague, the Pharaoh finally told the Israelites to leave Egypt. After the 10th plague, finally Pharaoh told the Israelites to leave Egypt. And God led them towards the Red Sea. Today, dear learner, we will learn about how God helped the Israelites cross the Red Sea. Okay, dear learner, let us look at how the Israelites go to the sea. Can you open your Bibles in Exodus 13, verse 17 to 18? It reads thus: God did not lead them by the way of the land, although it was near, for God said, let the people repent when they see war and return to Egypt. But God led the people round by the way of the wilderness towards the Red Sea. Here, dear learner, we are told that God led the Israelites through the wilderness. Why? Because he saw that when he led them by the way of the land, they will soon return to Egypt after they see wars on their way. God led them in the wilderness and they encamped at Etham. In their journey, the Lord was with them. He went before them by the day in a pillar of cloud. And by the night, he was in the pillar of fire. They were with God, dear Lena. Okay, now before they crossed the Red Sea, we've said that they had camped at Ethams. They were just relaxing because the journey was too long. Exodus 14 verse 5 to 6 tells us that after the Israelites had left, the mind of the Pharaoh and his servants was changed towards the people. What did they do, dear Lena? Pharaoh took his army, they took their chariots and followed the Israelites. Why did they follow them? They wanted to recapture them. They wanted to make them their slaves again. When we read Exodus 14 verse 10, now the children of Israel are encamped at Etham, and in front of them is the Red Sea. In their sides, we are told that there were mountains. Behind them, the Egyptian army was persuading them. They wanted to recapture them. Exodus 14 verse 10, we're told that when Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel saw them and were in great fear. They cried out to the Lord, and they blamed Moses for taking them out of Egypt to die in the wilderness. Okay, dear Lena. Let us look at this picture. It is the Egyptian army. It is the Egyptian army. You can see Pharaoh. You can see Pharaoh on his chariot. Also, you can see the Israelites. They are encamping at Etham. Now, Pharaoh is persuading the Israelites. The Israelites now are in fear. Let us move on, dear Lena. What did they say? The people told Moses that it was better for them to save the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Exodus 14 verse 13. And Moses, what did Moses say to the people? Now Moses is brave. Moses is courageous. Moses said to the people, "Fear not. Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be still." It means that Moses now is encouraging his people. He is brave. Okay, dear Lena, now they are crossing the Red Sea. What happened when they crossed the Red Sea? The Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your rod. Stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go on dry ground through the sea." God told Moses that he will harden the Egyptians' heart so that they follow the Israelites into the sea. You remember, dear Lena, that I've told you about the angel of the Lord that moved with them during the day. It was a pillar of cloud. During the night, it was a pillar of fire. The angel of God, who went before the host of Israel, moved behind them and blocked the sight of the Egyptian. Which means in the front, it was the Israelites. In the middle, it was the cloud. And backwards, it was the Egyptian army. Now, in this picture, we can see Moses in his hand. This is Moses. He is having a rod in his hand. He is raising his hand towards the sea. And the sea parted into walls in either sides of the Egyptians. Then the Egyptians were now moving or were crossing the Red Sea on dry ground. Okay, dear Lena. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. Then the Lord drove the sea backwards and made the sea a dry land, and waters were divided. All the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground. The Egyptians, we remember, dear Lena, that God said he will harden the Egyptians' hearts. Then the Egyptians went in after them into the midst of the sea, which were Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, his horsemen. But what happened? They drove heavily, and they decided to turn back, saying the Lord is fighting for the Israelites. Now they want to turn back. All the Israelites now crossed the Red Sea on dry ground. Exodus 14 verse 26 says, the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians. Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state. Just imagine the Egyptians now, they wanted to turn back, but they are driving heavily. The wheels of their chariots are now stuck in the sand. What happened after Moses had stretched out his hand over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians? Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state. The Egyptians who followed the Israelites drowned. They drowned in the Red Sea. Okay, dear Lena, let us look at our picture here. Egyptians drowning in the sea. You can see the chariots, the horses, the army, and here we see the sea waters coming back to a normal state, and the Egyptian army is drowning in the Red Sea. Okay, dear Lena, I think I'll ask Lerato so that we can go for break. After break, we're going to move on to after crossing the Red Sea.
Okay, ma'am. Can we please take an infomercial break? We'll be back after the break.
Labanengi labangenwa ligciwane lecorona bavame kuba netimpawu letingasito letimatima njengebuhlungu bemphimbo, kuphathwa inhloko, kushisa nekubanza, kukhwehlela lokomile, kuphefumula kalukhuni kanye nekudzinwa. Kepha kulabanye kuba matima njengoba leli gciwane lihlasela emaphaphu. Ngesikhathi umtimba ulwa nalo leli gciwane, wakheka emanti lagcola emaphashini. Emaphaphu-ke angagcola emanti akuphefumuleki. Lokhu-ke kubanga tingcinamba letinengi. Kuthi kweshisa kulabanye kuyasita ekunciphiseni kwanza kwesifo i-COVID-19. Hlala ekhaya ungahambi. Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
Ligciwane lecorona lincane kakhulu. Angeke ulibone ngemehlo enyama. Kuze liphile lidzinga kunamathela kubantu. Leli gciwane lingena melula emphumulweni, emlonyeni kanye nasemehlweni. Ligciwane le-corona alikhethi. Lingesuka kithi thine bantfwana liye kubatali kanye nabothishela. Lisengesuka kubo litekithi. Indlela yekulimisa leli gciwane kulivimba kuthi lisuke kulomunye liye kulomunye. Uma umuntu athimula noma akhwehlela, leli gciwane lihamba kanye nalamathonsi laphuma kuloyo muntu. Uma uthinta lapho athimulele noma akhwehlelele khona, uyalibutha leli gciwane. Uma ke uthinta impumulo, umlomo noma emehlo, livele lingene kuwe. Ngakho ke umthetho wekucala, umthetho lomkhulu, geza tandla takho ngemanti lagijimako nangensipho njalo njalo. Uma uthimula, thimulela engcoseni yakho. Ungaqala ufake imino empumulweni. Dikhweshise kulabanye bantfu ngesigaba lesiyimitha. Kepha lokusebenta kangcono kakhulu, uhlale ekhaya. Uma sihlala emakhaya, leli gciwane alikhoni kuhamba.
Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane le-corona.
Hi viewers at home, my name is Professor Shabang. I am the presenter for your favorite health program, Better Health, Better Life. Thank you viewers at home for the calls and the messages, and thank you Eswatini TV for the great platform. Better Health, Better Life Season 4 is coming bigger and better. And now you have a chance to participate by sending a video of your view prior to the next program. On that note, we are appealing to all Emaswati, please stay at home, stop the spread so that we can save lives.
Welcome back, grade 7s. We are still learning religious education with Miss Winnie Dlamini. Ma'am, you may continue with your lesson.
Okay, dear Lena Tom, we were after crossing the Red Sea. The Israelites had crossed the Red Sea. The Israelites saw the Egyptian dead bodies upon the seashore. And Exodus 14 verse 31 tells us that, and Israel saw the great work which the Lord did against the Egyptian. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and his servant Moses. Okay, dear Lena, let us move on. Now here is a picture of the Israelites. Now they are resting after they've crossed the Red Sea. And here are the dead bodies of the Egyptians at the seashore. Okay, now dear Lena, let us look at the lessons and the teachings from the story. The lessons in the story, we learn that God protects his people. God punishes disobedient people. God delivers his people in times of trouble. People should have faith in God. And the teaching is that God wants his people to obey him and have faith in him. Okay, dear Lena, let us look at the characters of these people. God is omniscient, which means God is all-knowing. He knew that the Israelites are going to return back if they see wars in their way, so he took them by the way of the wilderness. He is omnipresent. He was present everywhere as an angel or an angel or the cloud or the fire. He is all-powerful. He helped Moses to part the Red Sea. Pharaoh was stubborn. He followed the Israelites even after God caused the 10th plague. Moses was obedient, was faithful. He listened to God. He had faith to God. He was brave. He was courageous. He was confident. He told the people of Israel that they have to be still and firm. The Israelites were impatient and had little faith. So let us move on, dear Lena. Let us look at today's questions. You can write down. who parted the Red Sea? Number 2, what happened to the Egyptians who followed the Israelites? Number 3, why do you think the Israelites thought going back to Egypt was a better option than dying in the wilderness? Number 4, it's our evaluation question, dear Lena. Were the Israelites justified in blaming Moses in the story of crossing the Red Sea? Give reasons to show that you have thought of different points of view. I think I've written the questions, dear Lena. Question number 1 said, who parted the Red Sea? The answer is Moses through God's power. It was Moses through God's power. Number 2, what happened to the Egyptians who followed the Israelites? They drowned in the Red Sea. Question number 3, why do you think the Israelites thought going back to Egypt was a better option than dying in the wilderness? The answer is they did not trust that the God of Moses would save them from the Egyptian army. Then question number 4, the evaluation question. Question number 4, were the Israelites justified in blaming Moses in the story of crossing the Red Sea? They blamed Moses that why he took them out of Egypt so that they can die in the wilderness. They said it was better for them to save the Egyptians. Were the Israelites justified in blaming Moses? Our answer 1 can say yes. Why? Because the Egyptians were armed behind them. They feared for their lives. And 1 could say no. Moses was sent by God, and God has always been protecting them. They should have trusted and believed God, who was working through his servant Moses, rather than doubting him. Okay, dear Lena, in our conclusion, that is in ending our lesson, we've learned that God led the Israelites through the Red Sea, through the wilderness, in a pillar of cloud by the day and in a pillar of fire by the night. We've also learned that Moses parted the Red Sea through God's power. And God told him to raise the rod in his hand over the sea. The Egyptians who followed the Israelites sought to recapture them, drowned in the Red Sea after Moses raised his rod again over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians and their chariots and their horsemen. The last one is the Israel saw the Egyptian dead bodies, and they feared and believed in the Lord and his servant Moses. Unfortunately, dear Lena, that is the end of our lesson today. Wishing you the best in the next lesson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winnie. It was a very good lesson right there. It was interesting, and I'm sure that the grade 7s learned a lot today. Up next is my colleague Nogwazi Dlamini, who is going to be presenting the next Form 3 subject. So Form 3s, do not go anywhere. Just grab a snack because Nogwazi will be back after this.
Hi viewers at home, my name is Professor Shabang. I am the presenter for your favorite health program, Better Health, Better Life. Thank you viewers at home for the calls and the messages, and thank you Eswatini TV for the great platform. Better Health, Better Life Season 4 is coming bigger and better. And now you have a chance to participate by sending a video of your view prior to the next program. On that note, we are appealing to all Emaswati. Please stay at home, stop the spread so that we can save lives. Hi, my name is Professor Shabang. I am an actor and a TV presenter. Coronavirus is a deadly virus, an invincible enemy killing people all over the world. We are not exempted, but together we can walk through and overcome as a nation. All we need to do is to follow the health precautions. Stay at home, stop the spread, and save lives.
Kumelula ukuthi ligciwane lecorona lisuke kulomunye lingene kulomunye uma sitawusonzelana. Singasita sinciphise kuanza kwalo ngekuthi sikhweshelane. Lokhu kusho ukuthi singachawulani, singathinzani njengokuhagana nje. Tikhweshise ngesigaba lesimitha kusuka kulabanye. Kumcoka kakhulu kuhlala uhlobile nekuthi hlobisa uma uke waphumela kubantu. Ngekubambisana sitakumisa kwanza kwaleli gciwane sibe ngulabaphilile. Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Very good afternoon to our viewers and a very warm welcome back. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini and we are still tuned in to Home Study on Eswatini TV, and right now we are doing English language for the Form 3s with Deli Dlamini, who has already joined me in the studio. Also joining me in the studio are our sign language interpreters Zanele Mota and Nompumelelo Hatebe. Deli, how are you doing this afternoon?
Feeling okay. Thank you for asking. How about you, Nogwazi?
I'm feeling okay, I think. I understand today we're doing writing a speech, right?
Yes, we are.
What are you expecting your Form 3 learner to have learned by the end of the lesson?
I'm expecting my Form 3 learner to be able to know what a speech is, to know how to write a speech, and to write a speech.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Form 3s, I hope that you are ready for that. And just a reminder to our viewers that we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to use our WhatsApp number. Deli, please, you may begin your lesson.
Thank you so much. I am going to start with our lesson objectives. By the end of the lesson, learners should be able to do the following. They should be able to communicate appropriately with a clear awareness of purpose, audience, and register. This is very important. Every time they write, they should be able to communicate appropriately with a clear awareness of purpose, audience, and register. They should also be able to communicate clearly and develop ideas coherently. Last but not least, they should be able to observe conventions of paragraphing, which is very important. They should be able to punctuate appropriately and write the correct spellings. Okay, I hope, my dear learner at home, that is clear for you. Let us move on. The starting point of our lesson is going to be the definition. What is a speech? A speech is a means of communicating with an audience. A person makes or delivers. These are the verbs that you use. You make a speech or you deliver a speech. A speech can also be said to be a formal talk that one has or uses when addressing an audience. How is a speech written? When writing a speech, whether the speech is semi-formal or formal, you should consider the following. These are very important things that you need to take into consideration as a learner. The first one is your audience. You should be able to identify your audience. Identify your audience so that you can address the relevant people. If you do not know who you are going to address, how are you going to be able to address the people? What kind of language are you going to use? How are you going to address the people? It's very important to identify the audience. And in directed speech, the instructions for your in directed writing, I'm sorry, my dear learner, the instructions for your speech will indicate who your audience is. So you should always take that into consideration. Make sure that when you are given the instruction, go and identify who is your audience. Who are you supposed to write the speech to? Who are you supposed to address in your speech? Moving on, another key point to take into consideration is the tone. The tone of your speech affects the audience. For example, if you say the poor victim was left injured, the tone here, my dear learner, is sad and pitying. However, if you say that the person was a survivor who successfully overcame a difficult situation, your tone here is admiring and impressed. You have to use striking and effective words to achieve this when you are writing your speech. Take the tone into consideration. What effect do you want to have on your audience? This is going to depend on the tone you are going to use. Also, you have to use rhetorical questions and emotive language to appeal to the emotions of the audience. The purpose of the rhetorical questions and the emotive language is to appeal to the emotions of your audience. What's a rhetorical question? My dear learner at home, you may be asking that question. Rhetorical questions are questions that have an obvious answer. The person who is asking you the question already knows the answer, and he already knows what answer or what response you are going to give. So these are questions that have an obvious answer that support the point you want to make. The usage of such questions can help get the audience on your side. It depends on the subject matter or on the instruction. Why are you writing the speech? If you want to get the audience on your side, then you need to use emotive language or rhetorical questions. They make the audience, when you use the rhetorical questions, they make the audience to be involved in your speech as you present it. Examples of rhetorical questions include the following. really think that it is a wise decision to introduce the death penalty? Remember, my dear learner, you cannot just say this in each and every speech, but it will depend on the subject matter. What are you talking about in your speech? Then the use of such a question will have a certain effect on your audience. Another example is this one. The first one, I've already said it. The second one, is it right that children should have to learn in such condition? You are posing a question to the audience. You do not expect your audience to give you the response. You are just playing with their emotions. You want to get them to your side. Another important thing that you need to take into consideration, my dear learner, is the register. The word register refers to the level of formality. The level of formality in a piece of writing. The register and the language you have to use in a speech is formal. Make sure, don't make any mistake. It is formal language. When writing to your teacher, your register is supposed to be formal. When you are talking to the principal, your register is even more formal than when you are talking to your teacher. When you are talking to someone of the highest authority in the land, again, the register that you are supposed to use is supposed to be very formal. There are certain levels of formality. You are not, please note that, you are not supposed to use slang. It is a no-go area. Never use slang when you are writing a speech. Another key aspect is the purpose. The purpose means what? The task at hand. You need to know exactly what you are expected to talk about. Why are you writing the speech? You need to know that. Analyze the question so that you understand this. And you need to have enough information about the topic to share with your audience. You need to be knowledgeable on what you're going to be talking about to your audience. Another key aspect is the structure. A speech has structure. It has what we call the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. These are the key elements. Let us look into the introduction, my dear learner. The introduction. In the introduction, make sure that you include the following things. The first thing is a greeting to the members of the audience. And remember all the time to observe what we call protocol. What do I mean, my dear learner? I mean that you need to start by greeting the most senior person in the audience. And then you move on to the next senior person. And you work your way down to the house at large, where you say, ladies and gentlemen. This is very important whenever you are writing a speech or you are addressing an audience. And the next step after the greeting, my dear learner, is an introduction of yourself and your position, if you do have a position. Maybe you are the member of the environmental club, or you are the head girl or the head boy. That is worth mentioning. They should know who is addressing them and what position do you hold. It is very important for the audience to know who is addressing them. So do not leave this out. And remember that during the introduction stage, this is the nestling stage where you are maybe nervous. You are trying to look at the members of the audience. You are still in your mind trying to concentrate on what you are going to be delivering to the audience. Another thing that you should include in the introduction is a brief summary of what your speech is going to be on. We have talked about three things. We said in the introduction, you put in the greeting, you introduce yourself to the audience, you also state your position, and then you give a brief summary of what your speech is going to be on. Let us now move on, my dear learner, to the body. In the body, Make sure that you address the points you have been instructed to deliberate on. In our syllabus, the curriculum that we are following, the syllabus that we are following, you are usually given bullet points or bulleted question that you, in your speech, you should include this. So in the body, my dear learner, make sure that you address the points that you have been instructed to deliberate on. Address them adequately by addressing one point in one paragraph. You should also show excellent sense of style and register by communicating appropriately with a clear awareness of the purpose. Why are you writing the speech? Who are your audience? And use the right register. Express your ideas clearly and effectively. Okay? In the body, make sure that you develop your ideas coherently by using accurate spelling. Make sure that you spell all the English language, the words in English correctly. Punctuate correctly and use grammar correctly. Use what we call discourse markers like first and foremost, secondly, however, consequently, in addition, and in conclusion. I'm just naming a few. There should be coherence, my dear learner, in your speech. There should be coherence and cohesion. It should flow. Your speech should flow. The audience should understand what you are trying to communicate to them. Let us now move on to the conclusion. In the conclusion, you may conclude your speech with a brief summary of the most important points you have made. Remember to thank your audience for their time and attention. Show your appreciation. My dear learner, now that I've highlighted the key elements that need to be included in a speech, let us now move on to the following task, where I'm going to illustrate what I have been saying. Here's the exercise. Your principal announced that there will be a blood donation drive or activity at your school, and the Minister of Health will be present on the day. Minister of Health will be present on the day. You are requested to give a short welcome speech as the head girl or head boy and regular donor. Write a speech. Here is the instruction now. Write a speech that you will deliver on the occasion. In your speech, you should include the following. These are what I called the bullet questions or the bullet points. When you started donating blood and how you got to know about it. The importance of donating blood, both to the donor and the recipient. Encourage all the learners to donate blood. You have been given 3 bullet questions here that you need to address in your speech, and you need to make sure that you address all of them. You're supposed to write a speech. That is the instruction, it's the task, it's the purpose. It's a welcome speech, and the Minister of Health is going to be there. He or she is going to be a member of the audience that is going to help you when you greet, when you observe protocol. Let us now move on. Here is an introduction, an example of an introduction. The introduction, it's a paragraph, correctly, appropriately paragraphed. The Minister of Health, the Honorable Lizi Nkosi, the Principal, Mr. Dlamini, the Deputy, Mrs. Mamba, teachers and students, I greet you all. Standing before you is Nogusa Vilagati, the current head girl. I am grateful to be given such a great opportunity to deliver a welcome speech which will mainly touch on the importance of donating blood and is aimed at motivating fellow students to donate blood. Let us now look at our introduction here. There is the greeting, my dear learner. Let me just highlight the greeting. Here is what I said you should include the greeting. where you are observing protocol. The most senior person who's going to be in the audience here is the Minister of Health. You start by greeting her, acknowledge her presence, followed by the principal, followed by the deputy, then followed by the teachers. The last one are the students. Moving on, I said that in the introduction, you are also supposed to introduce yourself. You cannot talk to people and not tell them who you are. Standing before you, here is the introduction, is Nokusa Vilagat. That's you're introducing yourself to the audience. The current headgear, that's your position. And you're showing your appreciation for being given the opportunity to deliver a speech. I am grateful to be given such a great opportunity to deliver a welcome speech, which will, remember, I said that you also need to just a brief summary on what your speech is going to be on. And I took this from the bullet questions you were given in the exercise, which will mainly touch on the importance of donating blood and is aimed at motivating fellow students to donate blood. That's a brief summary of what your speech is going to touch on or to be on. Let us now move on to the body. I'm still illustrating what I said you should do when you're writing a speech. Again, my dear learner, this is my body. It's correctly paragraph. Remember, there should be cohesion and coherence. Coherence between paragraphs and cohesion between sentences. I link my first paragraph with the introduction with the cohesive device first and foremost. This is my first, I'm addressing the first bullet in the question. I believe that donating blood should be everyone's responsibility in society. I started donating blood the moment I turned 16, and I was doing Form 1 at that time. The blood donation team from the Ministry of Health came to the school to sign up students who were 16 years and above for blood donation. I was instantly captivated by the idea of being able to save lives. I immediately signed up and I never looked back. I have been donating blood ever since. Don't you think that donating blood is the most noble thing a person can ever do? That's the body, where I'm addressing the first bullet. And let me now go into what is in this. Remember, the bullet said you should tell the audience when you started donating blood. And in this paragraph, that is exactly what I'm doing. I started donating blood the moment I turned 16, and I was doing Form 1 at the time. I'm giving the background information. The blood donation team from the Ministry of Health came to the school to sign up students who were 16 years and above for blood donation. I was instantly captivated by the idea of being able to save lives. The importance of donating. I immediately signed up and I never looked back. Remember, I said that you need to use rhetorical questions and emotive language to get the audience on your side. Remember, here you're supposed to be marketing donating blood. You should be encouraging the audience to donate. The students should flock in after your speech. The students should flock in to sign up for blood donation. So here in the last sentence in this paragraph, I have used a rhetorical question. Don't you think that donating blood is the most noble thing a person can ever do? This is the rhetorical question. You are posing it to the audience, to members of the audience, but you are not expecting them to give you the answer. The answer is obvious. You are playing with their emotions. It's like what I can call emotional blackmail. At the end of the day, you will find that they will go and donate blood. Okay? The activity for today, my dear learner, remember I've given you the introduction. I've illustrated how an introduction is supposed to be done. I've also I've addressed the first part of the bullet point or bullet question. Now you are supposed to continue the speech and address the two remaining points. What are the two remaining bullet points, my dear learner? In the exercise, the first one was the importance, tell the members about the importance of donating blood both to the donor and recipient. It's a double-barrel question. You are not just going to touch on the donor only, but make sure that you also tell the audience what is the importance of donating blood to the person who's going to receive the blood. Then the last point was for you to encourage all the learners to donate blood. You are supposed to motivate them, sell, make sure that when your speech is over and done with, more students are saying, wow, this is a good initiative. I also want to go and donate blood. I want to save lives. Here I've just wrote the conclusion. Remember, I said that in the conclusion, you are supposed to show your appreciation for being to the audience for their attention. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for lending me your ears. I hope that students will flock in to donate blood as it is for a good cause. Have a great day. That's the introduction. It should be as brief as possible. But what is important when you're writing a speech is for you to develop, make sure that you address the bullet points or the bullet question that you have been given, and you just don't address them as a by the way thing, but you address them adequately. Leave no stone unturned, because your response shouldn't be just satisfactory. It should be effective. The reader, the person who's going to be reading your speech, should say, wow, I am convinced that blood donation is a good initiative at the end of the day. Okay. Nogozi, do you have a question for me?
Actually, I do, but it's not really a question. Sort of, one of your students is asking for you to repeat the first response about blood donation.
The first one,
yes.
You are referring to the introduction.
Yes, the introduction.
Okay,
yes.
I'll clearly do so. Okay. There is the introduction. The Minister of Health, the Honorable Lizingosi, the Principal, Mr. Dlamini, the Deputy, Mrs. Mamba, teachers and students, I greet you all. That's the where you are observing what I call, you are observing protocol. You are greeting the members of the audience, and you are starting from the most senior person in the audience. If this was another question, maybe our king was there, you should start by greeting King Mswati III. Moving on, then I said you are supposed to introduce yourself. You cannot talk to people and not tell them who you are. Standing before you is Noku Savilagati, the current head. And it's very important. It has a nice ring to it when you state your position. How relevant are you? Why should you be giving a speech? Obviously, you are someone who has a position. I am grateful to be given such a great opportunity to deliver a welcome speech which will touch mainly on the importance of donating blood and is aimed at motivating fellow students to donate blood. In the introduction, just briefly sensitize the audience, members of the audience, what your speech is going to be on. They need to know that. Okay.
Thank you very much for that, Deli, and I hope the student was actually answered. And we're hoping to see you again. Thank you very much for the lesson. We're hoping to see you again for more English language.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Form 3s, please do not go anywhere. Up next is Lerato Mabilisa with the Mathematics Form 3 teacher, Mr. Kenneth Nzimanze. We'll be right back after this. The basic protective measures against the new coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently and thoroughly with soap and water, or use alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain social distancing. Maintain at least 1 meter distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. Hands touch many surfaces and can pick viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose, or mouth. From there, the virus can enter your body and make you sick. Practice respiratory hygiene. Make sure you and the people around you follow good respiratory hygiene.
This means covering your mouth and nose with your bent elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose the used tissue immediately. If you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical help early. Stay home if you feel unwell. Follow the directions of your local health authority. Stay informed and follow advice given by your healthcare provider.
Wash, washy, wash, washy, wash, wash your hands. Scrub it while you sing the song. Wash, washy, wash, washy, wash, wash. Rub your hands and fingers and the places in between. Using soap and water makes your hands so clean. Wash your hands. Great job, you're almost done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now dry.
Wash your hands for 20 seconds, just like Elmo.
In the Kingdom of Eswatini, we learn from home because of the COVID-19 pandemic, through social media platforms and television. The government provides us with subjects and teachers of grade 7, Form 3 and Form 5. Watch home study on channel 286 on DSTV or channel 02 on Ginger. Or else watch live on Eswatini TV YouTube channel.
Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Hand washing is one of the best ways to keep from getting sick and staying healthy all the year long.
Welcome back, Form 3s. If you've just tuned in, this is the second subject for Form 3 learners. And right about now, we are going to be learning mathematics with Mr. Kenneth Nzimanze. A very good afternoon, sir.
A good afternoon to you, Lerato.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. What is today's topic and what would you expect the viewer to have learned by the end of the lesson?
Well, today's topic is solving inequalities algebraically. What it means is that we are solving inequalities using algebra.
Okay.
By the way, the other question you asked me, what was it?
The topic.
That's the topic.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, then we go on to the objectives. This is what I'm expecting the learner to have got by the end of this lesson. They should be able to solve inequalities algebraically. They should also be able to correctly solve inequalities that involved multiplication or division by -1 or any other negative number for that matter.
Okay, I almost forgot very important people, our sign language interpreters, Linda Mamba and Tobile Fagutse. Anyway, so without wasting time, you may begin your lesson.
Okay, thank you so much, Lerato. Let us start with the rationale. Why is this topic important? Imagine this. You have some money. You want to buy stuff. Let's say you have something like 20 emalangeni. If you have 20 emalangeni, you can either use the whole 20 emalangeni or less than that. So that gives you something of an inequality. Or maybe you want to buy, say, 3 items. Think about you wanting to buy 3 items. You go to the shop. You are looking at the 3 items. You see that one of them already costs 50 emalangeni. What is that telling you? It is telling you that you are definitely going to spend more than 50 emalangeni when you buy the 3 items. So, in the language that we are going to be using today, we would say the amount that you are going to use is going to be greater than 50 emalangeni. The other one, where we started, we would have said you are going to spend an amount that is equal to what you have or less. So the or less gives you an inequality as opposed to an equation. Now, this is what we expect the learners to know even before they start the lessons. They should be able to solve. We are solving linear equations. Linear equations are the equations which have, for instance, this form. Y is equal to mx plus c, something like that. Those will be our linear equations. Then they should also be able to graph inequalities on a number line. It is something that learners have already done. The number line, we are very much familiar with that. Let us go on to see what exactly we shall be doing. Let us start with this. List the set of integers that satisfy the inequality x is less than 4. From what the learners have already covered, we can tell that this looks familiar. In one lesson, our learners did do, or learners, you did do something of the number line. So this would be represented by that number line. Notice that we have used strictly less than 4, and then what we have there is an open circle to show that it is strictly less than 4. This is what you have when you are doing the number line and your inequalities. Let us see what happens next. This question is slightly different from the one that we were looking at. This question now says, list the set of numbers. Let us go back to the previous one. The previous one was saying the list of integers. This one that we are looking at is saying numbers. It doesn't say integers. But of course, if we go back to looking at x is less than 4, what do we see? It is that our solution has to come from something that looks like the number line that we had. But the difference is that they have talked about numbers. Remember what the numbers are going to be. The numbers are going to come from the set of real numbers. We say R. Why are we saying they are all going to come from R? Because if we go back again, this number line gives you, let's take this 3 for instance. It is an integer, the 2 is an integer, the 1 is an integer, in keeping with integers. But now it's possible for us to find numbers in between, anywhere in between. And the numbers that we are going to get are not going to be integers. Instead, you are going to have some of them are going to be rational and others are going to be irrational. So that is why we are saying if you are talking about numbers in general, then they are either going to be from the set of rational numbers or the set of irrational numbers. But they are going to make the real numbers. Remember, all the real numbers we are talking about, we are not going to say we are using all of them. We are looking at those that are less than 4. For instance, you could take maybe 3.99 or 3 point whatever, but the important thing is that it has to be less than the 4. Let's look at another example. Now it says list the set of positive integers. Let's go back again. Here it was saying the set of integers. Now what are we saying? We are saying positive integers. We are qualifying the integers. So what happens now? Once again, we can go back, even though this now looks slightly different. Look at this sign here. Now it is a less than or equal to 4. So in trying to solve that using the number line, it would still give us something like, this, except what? Except one thing now. This is going to be a solid ball. It is not going to be that open cycle. It is going to be a solid ball like that. So let's continue and see what we have to do now. Note what is happening here. It says here it has to the inequality is x is less than or equal to 4, which means 4 is supposed to be included in the solution set. So the 4 is going to be included in the solution set. So whatever you do, you know that the 4 is going to be there. So we have said they are positive and they are integers. So positive means 0 is not one of them. So if we are looking at this one, it would be a set that looks something like 1, 2, 3, and 4. So all of these satisfy this condition. They are less than or equal to 4. The only point where they are equal, of course, is at 4. So the set of values satisfying an inequality is called a solution set. So this would be our solution set. In the case above, of course, in this case, we would have had all sorts of numbers starting at, for instance, here we would start at, let me say 3, then we would have 2, then we would have 1, then we would have, the next one would be 0, and then you would have -1 all the way. This would give you an infinite set, but which has a maximum of 3. Let us go on to the next slide and see what happens next. We want to start solving inequalities. But before you can solve inequalities, you have to know how to solve equations. Let us take an interesting equation, for instance, which will be 3x is equal to 12. To solve this, we simply divide both sides by 3, and then we are going to have x is equal to 4. We were solving an equation, just a reminder. But now we don't want to solve an equation. We want to solve this inequality. The way we do it is still the same as in the case of an equation. So even here we would have to divide by 3, divide by 3, and then we will get 1, 1, and here 4. So we end up having x is less than 4. Note that this is an inequality, not an equation. So x is less than 4. Let us take another one, the next example, where we have 2x is greater than 7. So even here, we would divide by 2, divide by 2. Oh, 2, not 3. Divide by 2. So what are we going to get? this is going to give us x is greater than 3.5. For that one, we had x is less than 4. So I want you to take note of the fact that this is an integer, but this one is not an integer. So it's possible to get anything like this when you solve. Remember, we are saying this gives you the solution set. I know that at this point you might be looking at it and saying you are looking at 4. How is it a set? It is because, remember, we said x is less than 4 consists of many numbers other than the 4 itself. So that is what we are going to be on the lookout for again next. So it is very important to note that values outside the solution set do not satisfy the inequality. What do we mean? We have just done 2x is greater than 7. And we said this one gives us an answer of x should be greater than 3.5. Here we are saying values outside the solution set do not satisfy the inequality. Let us see. Let us take a value that does not come from this range. Let us take a value from outside of this. Let us take, for instance, 3. As we have indicated here, we are taking x is equal to 3. Let us see what happens. Now, when we substitute, we are going to have 2 times 3 should be greater than 7. But this gives us 6 is greater than 7, which is not true. So why is it not true? Because we have used values from outside the solution set. So 6 is not greater than 7. Let us move on, dear learner. In your book, you have an exercise like this, exercise 8.2a. And we are trying to solve something like this. It was part, I have forgotten the part, but it is part of this exercise. So if we were solving an equation, we would have started off by adding a 4 here, and we would also add a 4 there. So what would we end up having? We would have 5x is greater than 20. And then from there on, dividing by 5, we will get x is greater than 4. So that way we have solved, and this is not just going to give us the solution, but it is going to give us the solution set. Why do we say it's the solution set? Because we are looking for any number that is greater than 4. For instance, if we put a 5 there, we are looking for a number that is greater than 4, and let's use 5 for instance. If we use 5, we are going to get 5 times 5 minus 4. 5 times 5 minus 4 gives us 25 minus 4. And the answer for this is 21. And indeed, 21 is greater than 16. So it satisfies the condition. Let's go on to the next one. This one also looks like an equation, but of course it is an inequality. So when you have a situation like this, where you have started off with a fraction, what you do is you first of all start off by clearing fractions. How do you do that? Let us identify our terms. This is one term, here is another term, and there is another term. So what do? You multiply each term by the LCM. In this case, we are multiplying by 3 because this one is 2 over 1, this one is 4 over 1, so the LCM is 3. If we multiply by 3 here, what we will then do is to multiply by 3 even there, and then we are also going to multiply by 3 there. So what happens now? What happens is we are going to have this 3 dividing that one, so that we are left with 2x, this one gives you a 6, plus 6 is greater than 12. 4 times 3 is 12. And then from there we subtract 6 from both sides, and we will end up having 2x is greater than 6. So from 2x is greater than 6, remember that we said 2x is greater than 6, we ended up having 2x is greater than 6. Dividing both sides by 2, we end up having x is greater than 3. Again, you can test other values outside of this range, the greater than 3. For instance, if you were to take a 2 and put it there, you would get something that does not satisfy this condition. So I want you to try that and see what happens. The next one, once again, what do? We identify our terms. How many terms do we have? Let me remove this for a start. We have this term, that term, and that term. Actually, it should go with the negative, but I just want you to pay particular attention to the 6. So let us start again. We are going to start off by multiplying everything by 3, every term by 3. And this one also by 3. And then we will end up having 8x minus 7 for this one, because the 3's are going to divide one another and you'll be left with that. So we'll have 8x is greater than or equal to 6x. The 6x comes from there, minus this is 18. So from there, once again, we collect like terms and see what we get. So let me write it elsewhere. We have now 8x minus 7 is greater than or equal to 6x minus 18. I hope I got it right, dear learner. So let us see what happens next. Let us collect like terms. Let us take this 6 from this side and move it to that side. So how do we do that? We subtract the 6x, sorry, not 6. We subtract the 6x. And at the moment, what are we left with? We are left with 2x minus 7 is greater than or equal to, these are going to cancel each other out. We are left with 18. And then, still collecting like terms, we see that we can take this negative 7 to the other side. So if we do that, we will end up getting, remember these are going to cancel each other out, so that we will be left with 2, how do I write a 2? 2x is greater than or equal to negative 11, I hope. And then try to solve that by dividing both sides by 2. So that is what I want you to try out as well. Of course, we know that the answer is going to be something like x is greater than or equal to negative 5.5. So anything outside of this, if you should get something that is less than this, it is not going to satisfy that condition. Let us move on to the next one. Remember, we are dealing with inequalities. So, don't be tempted to change the sign for an inequality into this, which is an equals sign. So remember that. And then let's see what we also have. Now we move on to multiplication and division by a negative number. This is what I want you to do. Think of this as something that looks familiar to you from how you have been dealing with equations. Let us multiply this side by -1. We are going to get a +4. But whatever we do on the left to maintain the inequality, we also have to do on the right. Multiply this one by -1, we'll get -9. Let's move on. We are doing the next one, part 2. We multiply this one by -1, we get +7. Multiply the -2 by -1, we get 2. We continue. We come to this one as well. We multiply, this is a +3. By -1, we get -3. Together with multiplying this by a -1, we will get a 5. So, let us see. These go together. Let me just underline like this so that you remember. So what we are trying to do is to see what is happening now. Oh, I've become this bad at this. Okay, what we want to see is what happens now. Let us look at 4 and -9. Which one is greater between 4 and -9? Obviously, 4 is greater than -9. Between 7 and 2, which one is greater? 7 is greater than 2. Between -3 and 5, 5 is greater than -3. So look at what has happened. The sign, let us start. We're looking at this sign, and then we multiplied both sides by a negative number. What happened? We got these values, but now the sign changes. So it reverses now. Instead of less than, it is greater than. Even here, it's the same thing. From less than to greater than. This one was greater than. Now it is less than. So this is showing you that whenever you multiply, in the case of inequalities, both sides by a negative number, a -1, you have to change the sign, write the reverse of the sign that you started off with. So based on that, let us look at what we have next. We have minus x is less than -2. Let us see what we are going to get if we apply the principle from above. We want to make this, or we want to multiply this by -1. We will get, what are we going to get? We will get positive x, and we will get positive 2. We come to the next one, this one. What are we going to get? X and -4. So straight away we remember now. What did we say? Once you multiply by a negative number, you change the sign. So we are going to have this, and then in this case the sign is going to be like that because it is the reverse of that. So multiplying by a negative number, remember, if you multiply both sides by a negative number, the inequality sign changes. Next. Now let us consider the following inequalities. Remember, in the previous slide we were multiplying. Now we are dividing. We are doing the same thing on both sides. Let's say we divide this by -2. Oh, sorry, we are dividing by -1. Sorry, we are dividing by -1. Divide by -1. We know what is going to happen here. There we are going to get a 2. There we are going to get a 4. But now looking at the relationship between 2 and 4, look at what happens. Again, even when you are dividing. We are seeing something like that. Let's go on to the next one. We divide by -1, we get -6. We divide by -1, we get a 3, a nice 3, not what you are looking at right now. So you get a 3. And then what happens next? Let us look at these two numbers. Which one is greater? Of course, 3 is greater than -6. We come to this one. This one now. We multiply both sides by a -1. We get -5. And we get -3. Which is greater? Of course, -3, remember your number line, is greater than -5. So whether you are multiplying by a negative number or dividing by a negative number, in this case we have used 1, this is what you will get. The sign is going to be reversed. So straight away, let us go on to what I have put down as part B. So here, remember what we want to do. Even there, we want to divide by a -1. We know what is going to happen when we do that. When we divide by -1, we are going to get x. Here we are going to get -3, using the pattern that we have obtained in the above example. So here we are going to have x, and then we are going to have -4, and straight away we are just going to reverse the signs so that this is what we have: multiplying and dividing by a negative number. In this case, we're using a -1, but it works even if you are using -2, -3, whatever negative number you can think of. So let us come to this one, which is your exercise 8.2b in your book. So let us get started even there. So what are we going to do? We are solving. Whenever you are solving an inequality, what you are trying to do is to make x the subject of the formula. If it is written in terms of x, remember it's x, not -x. No, not that. We want it to be in terms of x. So because of that, let us take the first one. The first one, we are simply going to divide by -2, because that's the one that is going to give us x, and we divide by -2 even there. What do we end up having? We end up having x is, we are going to get a -3 that side. And then remember, what have we done? We have divided by a negative number. So because of that, we are going to have to change the sign. So the sign is going to go like this as opposed to like that. So that would be, your solution set would come from here. Next, let us do the next one now, which is similar to something that we saw above. So the first thing that we will have to do is to clear fractions. So the LCM here is 8, and then even this one we will multiply by 8, and we are also going to multiply by 8 there. Now I'm very much spoiled. Sometimes I have a tough time getting this right without using a calculator. So this is going to give us a -2x minus, this is going to give us a 40. Minus 40. It's supposed to be greater than 7 times this is 56. I think I'm getting better at this now. So next, what do we do? Collect like terms. So we are going to add a 40. What? We were having a -40. We are going to add a 40 this side and a 40 that side. So what are we going to end up having? Please keep your focus on this, because I'm about to take it somewhere up on the slide. So we end up remaining with minus 2x. The 40s have cancelled each other out, is greater than Let me see if I know how to add this. This should give me 96. From there, what do? We divide by 2. Now, by -2 because we want x to be that. Divide by -2. What are we going to get? We are going to get x this side. And this side we are going to get -48. And then the sign, since we have divided by a negative number, we know it is supposed to look like that. I hope we are doing well so far. How are we doing, Loretta?
No, we're doing well, so it's very interesting.
Okay, so let us move on to the next one. The age. That's how it appears in your textbook, learner at home. So how do we start? This one looks a bit tricky, but in fact it is not that bad. You will see how good it is once we start working on it. It's not as bad as it looks. So let's collect like terms. How do we start? Let us subtract a 2 from this end and also that end, both sides. What are we left with? We are going to be left with minus 5x is greater than or equal to x minus 12. Negative 10 minus 2 is minus 12. Oh, there's something. Yes. And then after that, we see we have an x this side and an x that side. So how do we move this x to the other side? We simply subtract the x, and what are we going to be left with? We are going to end up having minus 5x minus x will give us minus 6x. This is where the minus 6x is coming from, and that should be greater than, I'm still using the sign that was there, greater than or equal to negative 12. The negative 12 comes from there. And so from there, what do? We divide both sides by -6. -6. So what do we get here? We get x. What do we get there? We get 2. Remember, so what do we do next? Remember, we divided by a negative number. It means our friend here, that sign, will have to come down now as so that we have x is less than or equal to 2. That is what we have for our solution set. So straight away we go to our conclusion. We are hoping that by now you are able to solve linear inequalities in the same way that you do with linear equations, except that here we do not use the equal sign but rather the inequality, because we are dealing with inequalities. We don't want you to use this sign. Yes, when solving an inequality, remember, we get not just one value but a set, a whole set, solution set. And then when we divide or multiply by a negative number, the inequality sign is reversed. That is exactly what we wanted to do today, and I'm glad you managed, dear Lena. Thank you ever so much, Lerato.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very good and interesting lesson right there. We're hoping that you're going to come again next time.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next is my colleague Nogwasi Dlamini, who is going to be presenting the next from 5 lessons, chemistry, and I'm not sure the last one, but then she will be back after this infomercial.
Labanengi labangenwa ligciwane lecorona bavame kuba netimpawu letingasito letimatima njengebuhlungu bemphimbo, kuphathwa inhloko, kushisa nekubanza, kukhwehlela lokomile, kuphefumula kalukhuni kanye nekudzinwa. Kepha kulabanye kuba matima njengoba leli gciwane lihlasela emaphaphu. Ngesikhathi umtimba ulwa nalo leli gciwane wakheka emanti lagcola emaphashini. Emaphaphu-ke angagcola emanti akuphefumuleki. Lokhu-ke kubanga tingcinamba letinengi. Kuthi khweshisa kulabanye kuyasita ekunciphiseni kwanza kwesifo i-COVID-19. Hlala ekhaya ungahambi. Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
Ligciwane lecorona lincane kakhulu. Angeke ulibone ngemehlo enyama. Kuze liphile lidinga kunamathela kubantu. Leli gciwane lingena melula emphumulweni, emlonyeni kanye nasemehlweni. Ligciwane lecorona alikhethi. Lingesuka kithi thine bantfwana liye kubatali kanye nabothishela. Lisengesuka kubo litekithi. Indlela yekulimisa leli gciwane kulivimba kuthi lisuke kulomunye liye kulomunye. Uma umuntu athimula noma akhwehlela, leli gciwane lihamba kanye nalamathonsi laphuma kuloyo muntu. Uma uthinta lapho athimulele noma akhwehlelele khona, uyalibutha leli gciwane. Uma-ke uthinta impumulo, umlomo noma emehlo, livele lingene kuwe. Ngakho-ke umthetho wokuqala, umthetho lomkhulu, geza tandla takho ngemanti lagijimako nangensipho njalo njalo. Uma uthimula, thimulela engcoseni yakho. Ungaqala ufake iminwe emphumulweni. Dikhweshise kulabanye bantu ngesigaba lesiyimitha. Kepha lokusebenta kangcono kakhulu, uhlale ekhaya. Uma sihlala emakhaya, leli gciwane alikhoni kuhamba.
Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
Hi viewers at home, my name is Professor Shabang. I am the presenter for your favorite health program, Better Health, Better Life. Thank you viewers at home for the calls and the messages, and thank you Eswatini TV for the great platform. Better Health, Better Life Season 4 is coming bigger and better. And now you have a chance to participate by sending a video of your view prior to the next program. On that note, we are appealing to all Emaswati, please stay at home, stop the spread so that we can save lives.
Viewers, and a very good afternoon. If you have just joined us, you are still tuned into Eswatini TV, and this is Home Study. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini, and right now we are doing Form 5 Chemistry with Notando Dlamini, who is already joining me in the studio. Notando, how are you doing, Goz?
I'm okay. How are you, Wazi?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Today I understand we're doing atomic structure.
Yes, atomic structure and bonding.
Okay, all right. What are you expecting your Form 5 learner to have learned by the end of this lesson?
Okay, by the end of this learning, the learner at home should be able to draw an atomic structure, define an isotope, describe how ionic bonding is formed, draw dot and cross diagrams to show ionic bonding, describe covalent bonding, draw dot and cross diagrams to show how covalent molecules are formed. How?
Okay, no,
yes,
you can finish. No, it's okay.
Yes, how molecules are formed. Draw dot and diagrams to show how molecules are formed.
All right. Okay. We hope that the Form 5s are ready for their lesson. And just, of course, a reminder that we are live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. And, of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to use our WhatsApp number. Nothando, you may please begin your lesson.
Thank you, Nwazi. Okay. So today our lesson will be about atoms. Atoms are the basic building blocks of everything. Everything you know, everything you love, and everything you hate is made of atoms. The food that you eat, yourself as a human, the guy who plays loud music moving down the corridor is made of atoms. Even the music that he is playing is made from atoms. So they are the building blocks of life. We need to understand these atoms in order to be able to understand the world around it as to why things occur the way they do. That will help us develop so many things. It is used in that can be used in the field of medicine and technology in general. So everything you know is made from atoms. That's the importance of learning this topic in chemistry. So without wasting any time, let's get to business. So atoms, I have said before that they are the building block of life. They make up all matter. So what is an atom? The building block of matter. Okay, so how is it in structure? How is it in structure? That is where we come in as chemists. An atom has two regions. An atom has two regions, which are the electron cloud and the nucleus. The electron cloud has shells, and the nucleus forms the inner region of an atom. Okay, so atoms are made up of three types of small particles, which are known as subatomic particles. These subatomic particles are your neutrons, your protons, and electrons. You already know this, you have covered it in JC. Okay, so these subatomic particles, Lena at home, have different relative charges. They have different relative charges and different relative masses because they are so small in size. So now let us look at the charges and the masses these subatomic particles have. We have our electron, which is so small in size. It's 0.005. This one is 1, and this one it is 1. It is so small in size, and it has relative charges. These have relative charges. We have our electron having -1 as a charge, our proton having +1 as a charge, and a neutron having a charge of 0, or we can say it is neutral. Okay, so now these subatomic particles, they occupy different regions of the nucleus. So in our nucleus, the inner region, as I've said earlier on, in the nucleus we are going to have the neutrons and protons. Okay, then in the shells of the atom we will have electrons. Okay, these shells are found in the electron cloud, so electrons are found in the shells of the electron cloud. Okay, so we have so many atoms that occur naturally and that have been discovered up to now. So they vary from each other in the number of the subatomic particles they have. Okay, so we have what we call a periodic table that we use so much in chemistry. This periodic table helps us to specify. It helps us to specify the number of these subatomic particles for all the atoms of the elements in the periodic table. It will help us specify how many protons, how many neutrons, and how many electrons an atom of an element will have. Okay, so this is how it will look like. We'll use this atomic notation. What you will see in the periodic table is something like this: X AZ notation. This notation, X will represent the chemical symbol of the element. A will be the mass number of that particular element. Z will be the atomic number of that particular element. Let's make an example with the element sodium. I've just cut a portion of the periodic table to avoid wasting time. So this is how it looks like. Our X here, we said X will be the chemical symbol of the element. So the chemical symbol for sodium will be Na. Then we have the mass number. Please note that the mass number is large, or it's big in size than the atomic number. Okay, so this is our mass number and this is our atomic number. This is our atomic number. Okay, so what is this mass number I have just talked about? We said it is represented using the symbol A. This is the sum. This is the sum of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. The sum of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. Okay, this one has a larger value. It's the one that has a larger value between the two numbers. As we have seen, that we have two numbers. The one with the larger value, it's our mass number. It is the sum of protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. The atomic number, also known as the proton number, which is represented by Z. This one is the number of protons in an atom. Okay, so now the atomic number is a characteristic number for an atom of an element. Hence, it will be used in identifying atoms of different elements. That means that these atoms, all of them, since we said there are so many, they will have different atomic numbers. Now, it is worth noting that in an atom, in a neutral atom, the number of protons will always be equal to the number of electrons. I repeat, the number of protons will always be equal to the number of electrons in a neutral atom. Okay, so let's try this exercise out. What is the chemical symbol for the element sodium? Well, if we have been following Lena at home, we covered it a few slides back. The chemical symbol for the element sodium, you all know it, it's Na. Next question, state the number of protons and electrons in sodium atom. Where do you get that? You use your periodic table. So fortunately in this case, I have sodium here. No need to go to the periodic table. So they're asking us how many electrons, how many protons, and how many neutrons are in the sodium atom. So we say this one right here, it is the proton number. The atomic number will be equal to the number of what? Protons present in this particular atom. So another thing, I say protons will always be equal to electrons, which means we already have the answer. We have 11 protons and 11 electrons. Okay, so how do we get the number of neutrons? Now we're going to say the mass number, which is 23. We're going to say 23 minus the atomic number, 11. So you have it right. We're going to have 12 electrons, 12 neutrons in the structure of sodium. Okay. The next question, so the answer is 11 protons, 11 electrons, and 12 neutrons. You have it right. So the third question is, where are electrons found in an atom and what is their charge? Simple. They are found in the electron shells and they are negatively charged. Okay. So the next question is, state the number states the name of the atom. States the name of the atom which has the atomic number 8. You just go to your periodic table. Oxygen has 2 numbers which are 16 and 8. Okay, so the atomic number for oxygen is 8. So the answer here will be oxygen. Okay, so let's move on. At times it happens that an element will have different atoms. How so? The element will have atoms that will have the same atomic number but different nucleon number. What does that mean? They will have the same proton number but different mass number. Same proton number but different mass numbers. Okay, so these ones, they are called isotopes. So the different forms of atoms an element will have, the different forms of atoms that an element will have, having same proton number but different mass numbers, they are called isotopes. They are called isotopes. So we are saying isotopes of an element will have a difference in the nucleon or mass number. Okay, why is that the case? This is because this isotopes will have a variation in the number of the neutrons. Now, you have to get this right. The number of protons and electrons will not vary in isotopes, but what will change will be the number of neutrons, hence giving the variation in the nucleon number. Okay, so now, as I have said, the number of protons and electrons, they are the same in isotopes, but there will be a variation in the neutron number. Let us look at this example. Carbon has 3 different isotopes, which are carbon 12, carbon 13, and carbon 14. So please note that these isotopes are named by their nucleon numbers that they have. Okay, so from our periodic table, I will write it for you to avoid wasting time, but this is how it's going to look like in the periodic table. We normally have C12 and 6 here. This is the one that we have. Yeah, that's a 6 right there. Okay, so now we're saying we have 3 different isotopes, which are C12, C13, C14. Okay, this is the one that we know. Okay, so we're calling them by their nucleon number, which means this one will be a C, 13, 6. Then this one right here, C14, it means it to be a C, 14, 6, like this. Okay, now pay attention to this. The atomic number, it's the same for all these isotopes. What does that mean? It means that the proton number will be the same for all the 3 isotopes. As you can see, we have 6 protons for carbon 12, 13, and 14. Now, what will happen to the number of electrons? Remember, in an atom, the number of protons will be equal to the number of electrons. So we're also going to have 6 electrons, 6 electrons, and 6 electrons. No variation in this one. Now, the variation will be from the neutrons, hence giving a resultant variation in the nucleon number. So remember how we said we calculate the number of neutrons in an atom. It's going to be the mass number, it's going to be the nucleon number minus the atomic number. So for this one, it's going to be 12 minus 6, going to have 6 neutrons. We're going to have 13 minus 6, 7 neutrons. 14 minus 6, which will be 8 neutrons. Easy, right? Okay, so let's try this one out. Hydrogen atom has 3 isotopes, which are H1, hydrogen 1, hydrogen 2, and hydrogen 3. Now fill in the table below. For hydrogen 1, remember, it's as simple as this. There will be no change in the number of protons and electrons. So if it's hydrogen, we know that for hydrogen, the atomic number is 1. Okay, so it means all the isotopes will have 1, 1, 1, 1 proton, and the electrons also, the answer will be 1, 1, 1 for everything. The variation will be in the number of neutrons. So for hydrogen 1, there will be no neutrons. It's the hydrogen atom we are used to, where we have just a proton in the nucleus and 1 electron in the shells. Then H2 will have 1 neutron, H3 will have 2 neutrons. We just say the nucleon number, subtract the atomic number. As easy as that. How do you draw an atom? How do you draw an atom? So as I've said before, an atom is going to have 2 regions, the electron shells and the nucleus. Remember, these subatomic particles, they occupy the different regions differently. Okay, so we are going to have our shells. There will be a shell that is close to the nucleus, and there will be other shells as you move away from the nucleus. So this is what will happen. So the first shell after the nucleus has the lowest energy, hence it is the one that is filled first. Okay, and it can accommodate a maximum of 2 electrons. And the other shells, that is from the second shell outwards, can accommodate a maximum of 8 electrons. Okay, so the electrons in an atom occupy the lowest energy, the first shell first. Then after it is full, they can occupy the other shells. Remember, the second shell is filled by 8 electrons. So let us do this example to show how carbon is drawn using, to show how an atom is drawn using carbon as an example. So carbon has the nucleon number, which is 12, and an atomic number which is 6, which means we're going to have 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. Okay, these are their charges: positive, negative, and neutral. Okay, so if you can look closely there, we have 6 protons, we have 6 neutrons in the nucleus. Now we are filling in the electrons in the shell. Remember, the first shell can accommodate how many electrons? 2. So we fill in 1, 2. The first shell is now full. Then we have to fill the next shells. How many electrons are we left with now? Since we have used 2 already, we are left with 4. So, sorry, I had to circle this one. 1, 2 in the first shell. Now we are left with 4 electrons, which will go to the next shell. So in the outermost shell, carbon atom will have 4 electrons. Okay, 6 electrons in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so let's try this exercise out. Draw the structure of aluminum atom, and write its electron configuration. You use your periodic table. I've cut it out to save time. I hope it's visible there. So aluminium has its nucleon number being 27 and its atomic number being 13. Already we know that you are going to have neutrons 24 minus 13, which is 14. Then 13 protons and 13 electrons. Okay, at times you don't need to actually draw the circles to show that there are protons. You can just fill in the numbers there, like we have done here. 14 and 13p. Okay, just write it as simple as this, depending on the instructions that have been given. Okay, so we have 27, 13. 13 electrons, 13 protons. 13 electrons, 13 protons. So now we have to fill in the shells. Okay, so in the first shell we will have 1, 2. It is full now. We go to the next shell. We put in 8 electrons. It is now full, but we haven't used all the electrons. Now what do? We put them in the next shell. We put them in the next shell. So it's supposed to be 13 in total. There's one that has been omitted there, so we're supposed to have 3 electrons in the outermost shell. So you can calculate for yourself. It's 2 plus 8, that is 10. Then we're in short of 3. We put the 3 in the third shell. So 1, 2, 3. 3 electrons in the outermost shell. As simple as that. Okay. So now atoms are unstable in nature. In order to attain stability, they have to have a full outermost shell. That is, if they have more than one shell, they have to have 8 electrons in their outermost shell. If they are in the first shell, they have to have 2 outermost electrons. Okay. So how do they attain this stability? They attain this stability by reacting with other atoms. Remember, they attain stability by being full in their outermost shell. How are they going to get that? They are going to do that by bonding with other atoms. Okay, it can be different types of atoms or the same atoms or atoms of the same element. Okay, so now the outermost electrons, also known as valence electrons of an atom, the outermost or valence electrons of the outermost electrons of an atom determines the number of electrons needed in order to have a full outermost shell. Okay, so it means that the number of electrons will affect the chemical properties of an atom. That is how an atom will react with other atoms. Atoms attain this full outermost shell by bonding with others. So this full outermost shell is known as the noble gas configuration. Okay, there are different types of bonding, which are ionic, covalent, and metallic bonding. Okay, so now let us look at covalent bonding. This is a type of bond that occurs between atoms of metals and atoms of non-metals.
I'm sorry, Notando, to interrupt you. I don't know if you would mind if we could take just a little bit of an infomercial break.
Oh, it's okay.
All right, okay. Viewers, we'll be right back after this.
Wash your hands. Scrub them while you sing the song. Wash. Rub your hands and fingers and the places in between. Using soap and water, make sure hands are Wash your hands. Reach up your elbows down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now dry.
Wash your hands for 20 seconds, just like Elmo.
The basic protective measures against the new coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently and thoroughly with soap and water, or use alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain social distancing. Maintain at least 1 meter distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. Hands touch many surfaces and can pick viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose, or mouth. From there, the virus can enter your body and make you sick. Practice respiratory hygiene. Make sure you and the people around you follow good respiratory hygiene. This means covering your mouth and nose with your bent elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose the used tissue immediately. If you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical help early. Stay home if you feel unwell. Follow the directions of your local health authority. Stay informed and follow advice given by your healthcare provider.
Welcome back to our viewers. You are still tuned in to Eswatini TV and this is Home Study. And right now we are continuing with the Form 5 Chemistry lesson with Nothando Dlamini. Nothando, you may please continue with your lesson.
Thank you, Nogwazi. So before the break, we were talking about how atoms maintain their stability. We say they attain that by bonding with other atoms. Okay, so there are different types of bonding, which are ionic, covalent, and metallic bonding. So we'll start by looking at ionic bonding. Ionic bonding. This is a type of bond that occurs between atoms of metals and atoms of non-metals. The type of bond that occurs between atoms of metals and atoms of non-metals. Okay. The atoms forming an ionic bond will lose or gain electrons in their outermost shell to form what is called ions. They will lose or gain electrons in their outermost shell to form ions. Okay. So now, how does this happen? Metals, you already know where metals are in the periodic table. Metals lose their outermost electrons to form positively charged ions, which are called cations. Metals lose their outermost electrons. They lose their outermost electrons to form positively charged ions, which are called cations. Now, non-metals, they gain electrons. They gain electrons in their outermost shell to form what is called anions. These are negatively charged ions. Okay. So now, what will happen after that, after the ions have been formed, is there will be an electrostatic force that will hold the ions together. Now, this electrostatic force is what is called, is the actual ionic bond. Okay. So, the substances which will have an ionic bond are called ionic compounds. Examples of ionic compounds, we have so many of them, but just to list a few, there's magnesium oxide, calcium chloride, sodium chloride, and many, many more. Remember, an ionic compound is just when you are going to have a metal reacting with a non-metal, so it's ionic. So now, when we are drawing diagrams of ionic compounds, we use dots and crosses to represent the electrons of the atoms partaking in the formation of the compound. Hence, these diagrams are known as dot and cross diagrams. Okay, this is what happens. We'll get to more detail. Just now we're going to have dots representing electrons in the other atom and have crosses representing electrons in the other atom, which is part of the compound. So now let us look at how an ionic compound is formed. We'll use sodium and chlorine as examples. Sodium is a metal. Our sodium is a metal, and our chlorine is a non-metal, as you already know. So now this is how electrons occupy the shells of a sodium. Now another thing, you can just write how the electrons occupy the shells of an atom without drawing the actual shells, and this is known as the electron configuration. It is written like this. These are electron configurations. So as you can see, it's 281 as it is written there, 281. Now let's come back to this. How is an ionic compound formed? An ionic compound we will start with atoms. We start with atoms. Okay, these ones are neutral, they don't have a charge. So sodium has 1 electron in the outermost shell, and chlorine has 7 electrons in the outermost shell. Okay, so what will happen? What will happen is this sodium atom will lose its outermost electron, 1 electron. Okay, so what happens when it loses this outermost electron? It will form ion. It will form an ion. Sorry, an ion is charged. It is positively charged, as you can see here. Now, in the outermost shell, how many electrons does this ion have? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It has attained a noble gas configuration, as we have said before. We want this electron configuration, the noble gas configuration. So chlorine, what happens to chlorine? Chlorine will gain an electron. The chlorine atom will gain an electron to become chloride ion. As you can see, it has gained this electron from sodium atom. Okay, so now it is chloride ion and sodium ion. They have opposite charges, hence they will be held together by an electrostatic force. Now these ions have full outermost shell. What you should also notice that the charges, they cancel out, +1, -1. So now this is the compound that has been formed. Okay, when you are required in an exam to use dots and cross diagrams to represent an ionic compound, this is how you draw it. The charge is all around. The charge is all around the ion, which is why we have put brackets here to show that the charge is all around the ion. So it is wrong for you to exclude these brackets. Make sure you put them. Okay, so now let's try this exercise. It says, describe and explain how an ionic bond is formed in magnesium oxide. So this is how we go about explaining it. Magnesium atom loses its 2 outermost electrons to form magnesium 2+ ion. Then oxygen atom will gain these 2 electrons to form oxide ion. These oppositely charged ions will be held by an electrostatic force. Charges of the ions then cancel out to form a neutral ionic compound. Okay. Show the dot and cross diagram to show the ionic compound calcium chloride. This is how it looks like. Outermost electrons for calcium, it has already lost 2 electrons. Remember, it's in group 2, so it's 2+, which means 2 chloride ions will be needed to cancel out the charge. 2 chloride ions will be needed. So this is what we have, like this. Charges cancel out. Now the second type is covalent bonding. This one occurs when atoms of non-metals bond with atoms of other non-metals. So it's non-metal to non-metal. It is formed by sharing of a pair of outermost electrons by atoms forming the bond. In the shared pair, you have to note that each one of the atoms will come with an electron. Okay, the outermost shells, they overlap to allow the sharing of electrons. So examples of covalent compounds, there are so many. We have carbon dioxide that to breathe out, nitrogen, hydrogen gas, and so on and on. So this is how the covalent bond is formed. We're going to have hydrogen atoms. So they have one electron. In order to be full, since they have one shell, they need to have two in the outermost. So what will happen is their shells will overlap, as you can see here. Their shells will overlap, and each will come with an electron, and the other will come with an electron. Now they are both full. This hydrogen has two electrons in its outermost shell, and this one also has 2 electrons in the outermost shell. So it's a covalent bond. Remember, we want to attain a full outermost shell. Another example, hope it's clear. We have H hydrogen reacting with chlorine. Orbitals will overlap. Now the 2 atoms will share electrons. Okay, so a shared pair of electrons can be represented using a straight line. So if we have one pair of electrons share, it's going to be a single bond. If there are 2 pairs of electrons shared, it's going to be a double bond. If you have 3 pairs of electrons shared, it's going to be a triple bond. For example, in carbon dioxide, remember, all these atoms should have a full outermost shell. So there are 2 pairs here that have been formed. So this is a double bond. It looks like this. So now, Lena, at home, you should be able to draw dot and cross diagram. Like in this exercise, you're required to draw methane. So what you have to achieve is that all the atoms should have a full outermost shell. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson. We have learned a lot today. We have covered that an atom is a building block of matter, which is made from subatomic particles, which are the neutral neutron, the positively charged proton, the negatively charged electron. And these, we say these subatomic particles, they occupy different regions in the atom. Okay, so neutrons and protons are found in the nucleus, and electrons are found in the shell. So we also say that atoms, they bond with other atoms in order to have a full outermost shell, in order to attain a outermost shell. So we have said that there will be ionic bonding, covalent bonding, and there's also another type of bonding which we'll discuss some other day, which is metallic bonding. Remember, to have a full outermost shell, there should be 2 or 8 electrons in the outermost shell. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Notando, and we're looking forward to seeing you again for another chemistry lesson.
Hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you
God
so
willing.
much. Yes, God willing. From 5s, go quickly grab yourself a snack and come quickly back, because I will be right back with the English language teacher, Bonisiwe Ndwandwe. We'll be right back after this.
Kumelula ukuthi ligciwane lecorona lisuke kulomunye lingene kulomunye uma sitawusonzelana. Singasita sinciphise kuanza kwalo ngekuthi sikhweshelane. Lokhu kusho ukuthi singachawulani, singathinzani njengokuhagana nje. Tikhweshise ngesigaba lesiyimitha kusuka kulabanye. Kumcoka kakhulu kuhlala uhlobile nekuthi hlobisa uma uke waphumela kubantu. Ngekubambisana sitakumisa kwanza kwaleli gciwane sibe ngulabaphilile. Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
litiko letempilo kwesixwayisile ke ngesifo lesivelile kulamalanga coronavirus COVID-19 bagcizelela kakhulu ke kuhlandeka kwetandla lokumcoka ukuthi itandla digezwe nawugeza tandla ke bashilo ukuthi digeze lokungenani ema seconds la 20 ngemanti lagijimako lanesipho lokunye ke lesixwayise ngawo ukuthi latingalweni lingahlala leligciwane ukuthi ngakuthi letingalo nato utiwashe ungashintsha itandla kuphela for 20 seconds nalamkhathi sinetandla ugeze nakhona litawufa ligciwane kanjalo ngiyacela ma loyal viewers geza intandla nihlale ekhaya nihlale niphephile sitayinqobe COVID-19.
Now, from the moment it was announced that there will be no sporting activities due to the ongoing COVID-19, we all felt that. But imagine how much work you can do in your house just using your chair. It could be anything you have in your house. Take a look at this. From my own chair, I'm able to exercise 30 minutes per day, from biceps to triceps to my abs. But what are you waiting for? It is doable, it is possible. I'm able to do all the work. No matter how much time it will take me, I will stay active. Now, if you're a soccer player, an athlete, a gym instructor, anyone who loves exercising, use this time. It is doable in the house, in your own time. Stay safe. Together, we'll win this war.
Imidlalo yonke imisiwe eveni. Hlala ekhaya utivikele kulesifo iCovid-19. Lokumcoka ukuthi uhlale ekhaya. Sitawudlala imidlalo uhulumende sekazivumela.
Kulesikhathi lapho khona umhlaba ula nemkhuhlane iCoronavirus, uhulumende kwakuleli ucele wona eMaswati ukuthi akahlale ekhaya alandele imihiso nemihambo yenhlangano yomhlaba emhlabeni. Kanike ngabe mbukeli ukuthi ngakala ukuthi uphume uye ekhaya ngoba ke uye emsebentini. Hlala ukufake iface mask. Kanike ngabe kubita ukuthi ukhwehlelela emkhonweni. Sitawubonana mbukeli mayibuya tona temidlalo ngabe sitawulandzela tona tinqumo ta hulumende. Stay home, stay safe.
So lokukhuthazwa kona ke ukuthi hlale ekhaya uhlanzekile ugeze tandla.
Keep fit, stay home.
Ungayi ngaphandle kuyodlala imidlalo.
Hlala ugcoke iface mask.
Welcome back to our viewers and a very good afternoon if you have just joined us. This is Home Study and you are still tuned in to Eswatini TV. Right now we are doing Form 5 English language with Bonisiwe Ndwandwe, who is already with me in the studio. Also joining us in the studio is our sign language interpreter Nombumelelo Hadebe. How are you doing today, Bonisiwe?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. If I understand correctly, we're doing a speaking exercise today.
Yes, of course.
What are you expecting your Form 5 learner to have learned by the end of this lesson?
Okay, by the end of the lesson, I expect my dear learner to appreciate what to do in a speaking exercise, as well as to note the expectations of the oral assessment.
Okay, all right. Sounds very interesting from Fives. I hope that you are ready. And just a reminder that we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use our WhatsApp number. Bonisiwe, you may please begin your lesson.
Okay, thank you so much, Nogwazi. My beautiful learner, welcome to our lesson today, which I've already mentioned that it is speaking. My dear learner, before we delve much into the lesson, I want us to remind ourselves on the importance of the 4 language skills that you have probably been exposed to in your school. Okay, and usually we talk about the integration of these skills because in a way they are intertwined. That is, you cannot have one without the other. So my dear learner, I want to believe that you have been exposed to the reading skill in your school. In reading, we have highlighted earlier on when we were dealing with the reading and writing exercise that you do annotation, you interact with your text so that you try and understand what the text is all about. And we highlighted that as you interact with the text, of course, there are some skills that you pick from your reading. There are some techniques, there is some art that the writer uses in his or her writing. So my dear learner, you are expected to then use those skills and employ them in your writing exercises. So now we are saying you cannot be able to write well without having been exposed to reading. So for you to write well, you need to be exposed to reading. And now again, we talked about listening. Remember, we said these skills are related. You cannot have one without the other. So with listening, we had highlighted, my dear learner, that for you to listen well, you need to listen not only with your ears, but also with your mind. Meaning basically that you need to make sense of the words that you hear. So now we are saying if you are going to listen well, you must have written something and you must have read what you have written. So now in listening, we have mentioned, my dear learner, that there are some things that you listen which are not said to you. Say for example the comma. You are never going to be told that here there is a comma, there is a full stop, or maybe there is an exclamation, but you listen or you hear those things. Why? Because we have been exposed to writing and we have also been exposed to reading. And now when we come to speaking, my dear learner, which is the subject of our focus in this lesson today, we are saying again, you cannot articulate something that you have probably not listened to, and you cannot listen to something that you have not written or have read before. So now, my dear learner, what I am basically reminding you of is that you should allow yourself to be exposed to all these 4 skills, because you need these 4 skills at the end of the year or in general life situations. So allow yourself to be exposed in those skills. So my dear learner, it is important to emphasize that, of course, we learn language so that we are able to communicate and express ourselves effectively. Thus, the teaching of language as communicative language, because we want you to be able to express yourself at the end of the day and express yourself effectively. So now I would encourage you, my dear learner, not to ignore the class activities that you are given at school, because they are part of the training which prepares you for the oral assessment which we are talking about today. Because without much practice, I am afraid you are going to have a problem when you are dealing with this paper. In fact, all the papers, they need you to be exposed. And I know that your teacher, my dear learner, exposes you to such. So you also have to allow yourself to be exposed to these very important skills, my dear learner, so that you do not have a hassle when you are expected to produce such. My dear learner, by the end of the lesson, I want us to be able to, or to be confident enough that we are going to be able to score almost all the marks there are in this exercise. And that is impossible. That is possible, my dear learner, excuse me. Some have done it before, and some are going to do it probably this current year, including yourself, my dear learner, and some are going to do it in the next coming years. But before we go into that, into the technical aspect of how we can go about attaining that, let us briefly look into the speaking exercise, just a general overview of this exercise. So first on my list, my dear learner, I want to remind you that in essence, this should be a conversation. We are talking about the speaking or oral exercise. This should be a conversation between two parties, that is yourself and your teacher or the examiner. So it should not be a presentation nor an interview as some usually attempted to do so. And having said that, my dear learner, I also want you to remember that you are the one being examined or assessed and not the teacher. What do I mean by that? This basically means that you should dominate the conversation because you are the one who is being examined or who is being assessed. The teacher is only there to help you because you cannot converse alone. The teacher is just there to help you move the conversation. So, my dear learner, do not allow a situation whereby the teacher will be doing too much probing, because that robs you of some marks. As I have already pointed out, that you are the one who is being assessed and not the teacher. The teacher is only there to help you move the conversation. So be on the lookout for that one. But at the same time, of course, being careful that you do not make it to be a presentation. And it should not be an interview whereby it is sort of a question and answer kind of a situation. Do not allow that. Make sure that you are also able to develop the ideas as you are given. Okay, so now, my dear learner, moving on, we are saying avoid the yes or no kind of responses. Okay, why? Because this does not allow room for the conversation to move on or for you to develop the ideas. I know that at times you might face a situation whereby you are asked, maybe by your teacher or the examiner, a closed question. But even in that situation, my dear learner, let me encourage you once again to try by all means to avoid responding with a yes or a no answer, because it is going to rob you of some marks of development, which we shall look into later on. So now you are if we can take a look at this example I have here. Do you like photos? Say maybe with your teacher you are discussing a topic about photos. Then your teacher asks you, do you like photos? Okay, it only comes naturally that you can give a yes or a no answer. But now I am encouraging you to avoid that. So now you can evade giving a yes or no answer by doing this, because we are saying this robs you of some marks. You've been asked a question, do you like taking photos? Don't say yes or no, because you are not going to be able to elaborate on that so that the conversation can move. So you can respond like this. Taking photos is one of my favorite pastimes, ma'am. And I'm in love with almost all my photos. You have been asked a simple question, do you like photos? Then you respond, taking photos is one of my favorite pastimes, ma'am. And you have responded to that question. And if you respond in this way, it allows for more room for you to develop even further without waiting for the teacher to ask you why you like taking photos. You have already opened the room for yourself to develop. Remember, we have said there are marks allocated for development of ideas. So now you can develop without allowing the teacher to ask you a question or to probe you even further. So you can continue, and I am in love with almost all my photos. And you can still develop that even further. There is this one special one that I took when I was on vacation in Cape Town. The teacher has not said anything there. You are developing because of the way you have strategized your responding to the teacher or to the question. You don't allow the yes or no kind of a response, even though you have been given a situation which calls for that or which channels you to give the yes or no kind of response. So if you respond in this way, it allows for more room for you to develop even further so that you don't give the teacher too much time to probe you, because that will make the teacher to dominate the conversation. Yet, as we have said earlier on, that you are the one who is being assessed or examined. So try to avoid that, my dear learner. Maybe one more example. Do you like traveling? This is also a closed question, which channels you to give a yes or a no answer. But we have already discussed how detrimental that is. So you try and evade it by doing the same. I am afraid I'm not quite keen on traveling, because you may give the reason. Probably cite a personal experience that you have had after traveling. You give that reason, or maybe it can be out of general observation of people who like to travel and of the situations that usually they find themselves in, which you think are not okay. So you can develop it in that way. And another thing which I want you to note, it is the employment of this word here, which is keen. Yeah, the teacher had asked you if you like traveling, but now instead of repeating maybe some of the words that the teacher has said, you try and find a synonym. We know that keen is a synonym for like, so that the teacher is going to note and give you a plus or a mark for that, because we have tried to find a synonym for the word like, and now you are using keen. You can use fond, any other synonym that suits the topic that you are discussing about. So that is also a plus in your marks. So now avoid the yes or no kind of responses, my dear learner, by using the strategy that I have just highlighted. So if you do this, it shows that you are engaging in the conversation, my dear learner. So engage in the conversation. That means you can even ask somewhat of a rhetorical question yourself, because as we have highlighted earlier on, this is not an interview whereby you will only respond when a teacher has asked you a question or when you have been probed by the teacher. This should be a normal conversation between two people. So you can ask somewhat of a rhetorical question and respond to it, because we know that if we ask a rhetorical question, of course we are not expecting an answer from the next person, but you can also respond to that as well. And you respond to it as well just when the teacher might be expected to respond. Let us look at an example for that one. Say maybe you were talking about something or losing something that is of value or that was of value to you. Then the teacher asks you, how do you feel about it? So now, instead of simply responding or directly responding to the question, you may try to ask a question, somewhat of a rhetorical question from the teacher. For example, if you were in my position, say, how would you feel? I am sure you would feel awful yourself, because then you give the reason. Okay, you have asked the question not expecting the teacher necessarily to respond to that question. But because probably you feel that it is too obvious, it has a too obvious answer, because once you lose something that is of value to you, of course you are bound to feel sad about that particular thing. Okay, so now this shows that you are part of the conversation, just like we have already highlighted, and you are not the interviewee, where you just expect the teacher to ask you a question and you simply respond to the question. He probes you, you respond to the probe. Don't allow a situation that will put you in that position, my dear learner. Okay, moving on, my dear learner, we are still on the speaking. We are saying if there is something that you have missed, you need not necessarily always have to say, come again, ma'am, come again, miss, come again, sir. It becomes monotonous, okay? Rather, try to use phrases like, excuse me, ma'am, I am not quite sure I understand what you are asking. Do you want me to state the consequences of drug abuse? So that is a question you have asked. You are trying to show the teacher that you have not understood. And at the same time, you are trying to ensure if what you think you have heard is exactly what the teacher was trying to ask of you. Okay, so instead of to keep on saying, excuse me, come again, say, then you can try and rephrase the question to try and ascertain if what you think you have heard is exactly what the teacher was asking of you, my dear learner. And that will be a plus again to your marks, because it shows that you are part of the conversation. Then another thing, we are saying avoid using gestures or maybe facial expressions. In this exercise, my dear learner, maybe one may remind you that usually we use a voice recorder and not a video recorder. So now, when you start probably frowning at the teacher to show that you did not understand the question, that is not permissible. It is not allowed, because if we are saying we are using a voice recorder, then the purpose of the recorder is to pick your voice. As I have said, it is not a video recorder. It is not recording any action or any gestures that you make. So try and express whatever you want to say by articulating them so that their voice may be picked. Don't give gestures, okay? And don't put your teacher in a situation where he or she will have to respond to a gesture or a question that you have not asked. You are simply frowning at the teacher, or you are giving gestures to show that you don't understand. The teacher should also respond to something that has been articulated. He or she should respond to something that you have asked in words, because there is a voice recorder there. It needs to pick your voice as well as the voice of the teacher. So please, my dear learner, if you are in the habit of frowning or of using gestures, please try to minimize that or to stop it totally. Okay, then another thing, you ask. This is a conversation. If there is anything that you need clarity on, ask, and at the appropriate time. We know that questions are allowed between the third and the fourth stage. That is, between the handing of the card, which we are going to discuss later on, the handing of the card, as well as the actual start of the main examination. So that is when you are allowed to ask questions or clarity on something that seemingly you do not understand. So please use that time effectively to ask for some clarity. Then the next one, you relax and speak naturally. So don't try to sound like the first language speaker and make yourself uncomfortable at the process, my dear learner. There is no need for that. Just relax. Okay, so my dear learner, I hope you were able to pick those a few reminders. In our next lesson, I believe we are going to strictly look at the technicalities of this exercise. What is it that you actually need to be careful of in order for you to be able to scoop almost all the marks? And like I have said, it is so possible, my dear learner, to get all the marks in this exercise. All the best.
Thank you very much for that, Bonisiwe, and we're looking forward to seeing you again, of course, for another English language lesson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Form 5s, unfortunately, that was the last lesson for you, but please do not go anywhere. Lerato and myself will be right back after this.
Kumelula ukuthi ligciwane lecorona lisuke kulomunye lingene kulomunye uma sitawusonzelana. Singasita sinciphise kuanza kwalo ngekuthi sikhweshelane. Lokhu kusho ukuthi singachawulani, singathinzani njengokuhagana nje. Tikhweshise ngesigaba lesiyimitha kusuka kulabanye. Kumcoka kakhulu kuhlala uhlobile nekuthi hlobisa uma uke waphumela kubantu. Ngekubambisana sitakumisa kwanza kwaleli gciwane sibe ngulabaphilile. Eswatini sibambisene kulwa nekwanza kweligciwane lecorona.
Litiko letempilo kwesixwayisile ke ngesifo lesivelile kulamalanga i-coronavirus COVID-19 bagcizelela kakhulu ukuhlendeka kwetandla lokumcoka ukuthi itandla digezwe. Nawugeza tandla ke bashilo ukuthi digeze lokungenani ama-seconds lang-20 ngemanti lagijimako lanesipho. Lokunye ke lesixwayise ngayo ukuthi latingalweni lingahlala leligciwane udzinga ukuthi letingalo nato utiwashe ungashinji itandla kuphela for 20 seconds nalamkhathi sinetandla ugeze nakhona litawufa ligciwane kanjalo. Ngiyacela ma-loyal viewers, gezani tandla, nihlale ekhaya, nihlale niphephile, sitayinqobe i-COVID-19.
Now, from the moment it was announced that there will be no sporting activities due to the ongoing COVID-19, we all felt that. But imagine how much work you can do in your house just using your chair. It could be anything you have in your house. Take a look at this. From my own chair, I'm able to exercise 30 minutes per day, from biceps to triceps to my abs. But what are you waiting for? It is doable, it is possible. I'm able to do all the work. No matter how much time it will take me, I will stay active. Now, if you're a soccer player, an athlete, a gym instructor, anyone who loves exercising, use this time. It is doable in the house, in your own time. Stay safe. Together, we'll win this war.
Imidlalo yonke imisiwe eveni. Hlala ekhaya utivikele kulesifo iCovid-19. Lokumcoka ukuthi uhlale ekhaya. Sitawudlala imidlalo uhulumende sekazivumela.
Kulesikhathi lapho khona umhlaba ula nemkhuhlane i-coronavirus, uhulumende kwakuleli ucele wona eMaswati ukuthi akahlale ekhaya alandele imihiso nemihambo yenhlangano yomhlaba emhlabeni. Kanike ngabe mbukeli ukuthi ngakala ukuthi uphume uye ekhaya ngoba ke uye emsebentini. Hlala ukufake i-face mask. Kanike ngabe kubita ukuthi ukhwehlelela emkhonweni. Sitawubonana mbukeli mayibuya tona temidlalo ngabe sitawulandzela tona tinqumo ta hulumende. Stay home, stay safe.
So lokukhutsatwa kona ke ukuthi hlale ekhaya uhlanzekile ugeze tandla.
Keep fit, stay home.
Ungayi ngaphandle kuyodlala imidlalo.
Hlala ugcoke i-face mask.
Welcome back to our viewers. Unfortunately, that was the last lesson for the day. We've had a good day. We've had a long day. Lerato, how was your day?
Well, my day was fantastic today. I enjoyed the day. It was very interesting, especially the religious education lesson about the Red Sea. It was very interesting. How was your day today?
My day was perfect. Thank you very much. I always enjoy English language, so I enjoyed that. That was very, very interesting for me. Speaking of which, grade 7s, Form 3s and Form 5s, this is what your timetable looks like for tomorrow. From 2 p.m. until 2:30 p.m., the grade 7s have English language. From 2:30 p.m. until 3:08 p.m., the Form 3s have Eswatini. From 3:08 p.m. until 3:45 p.m., the Form 3s again have additional mathematics. From 3:45 p.m. to 4:25 p.m., the Form 5s have Eswatini. And the last lesson for the day for the Form 5s from 4:25 p.m. until 5 p.m. is religious education. Lerato, please remind our viewers about our social media platforms.
Well, we have YouTube and Facebook where we are live from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. And do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that whenever we are live, you get a notification. Also, we have
a WhatsApp number that you can use to text any questions that you might have for that particular subject. Now, we hope that you enjoyed today and are looking forward to tomorrow for another day of learning. We will see you tomorrow. Stay safe. Good night. Have a blessed night.
Bye.